Good day, traders. This is a trade site market commentary with charts brought to you by eSignal 11. I wouldn't call this a trade review so much as I'm look backwards a little bit at something we've been watching and sort of show you how it played out in the actual marketplace over the last couple of months and really give you an idea of how some of our tools, and this is on the Forex side, can really be useful in terms of spotting turning points in the market. So this is the dollar index daily chart, and I've jumped back to the beginning of July, basically the second half of the year starting right here on the daily chart, and you can see at the time we were looking at there was a green static trend line from this 9-bar move down, okay, and then we had a 9-bar move up over here. It gives us a red static trend line. These are both trade 2 targets that we were watching as sort of the range exteriors, and you can see what happened right here in early July was we ran into this top static trend line and had some issues getting through. Finally tried and failed again, you can see. So that general area was a strong resistance, and you're going to get some sound alerts here as some of my signals pop as I do this. But we dropped back down into the middle of this range, couldn't get through that upper static trend line. And so here's how July sort of played out, and this next bar is going to make some noise as well, as that was a new 9-bar down. Now when that setup occurs, it erases the prior 9-bar down that had not been violated and broken. You see that the ones back here, here's a static trend line that's dashed green. It's because it did break, so it freezes in place right there. But when you have an active one that was not broken under our rules, which is that we close above it and then head higher one more bar, when you have an active one and then you get a new 9-bar setup, it replaces the prior one. So here's our new static trend line right here based on this new 9-bar move down, and we still have the one lower. And what I was looking for after this, because our seeker count began, and notice that the dollar index, you get the 9-bar setups first, and then the seeker count begins, and that's the 1 to 13 countdown phase. And even if you look back here, I'll slide this chart back. Okay, we haven't had a 13 signal on the dollar index for quite a while. We've not gotten through to one. So even when we've had the 9-bar setups, and they've sort of been the pause points in the market, but the seeker count itself, which is the 1 to 13, the more powerful count, hasn't actually happened on the dollar index in over a year, which is really interesting. You wouldn't think that would be the case. That's a long time to go. So what we were looking at is that there's the 3rd and the 4th bar. It's the red numbers that matter towards that count. And as we started out of August, what I was saying at the time was, if we get down here near this red static trend line and we can complete the seeker 13 phase, and remember it's a different methodology for the actual countdown that doesn't have to be consecutive. As you can see here, we got the 4th bar already, had a couple days without any numbers. Now as we start to head down again, you'll see bar 5. And also with the seeker, remember, you don't have to be making new lows or new highs. You just have to use a 2-bar, what we call a 2-bar look back method. So what I was looking at is if you could get down to this key support level and get the 13 buy signal off of that would be very strong. But I want you to really see how this played out in the 24-hour market of the Forex pairs. So the Forex market and the dollar index. So here's your 6 and your 7. Okay, you'll notice we have a new 9-bar setup here, but we're gonna get a little bounce first. We're nowhere near a 13 yet. There's an 8, and now we start to head up, and that erases the 9-bar setup that was starting to form to the downside. So we've got 8 bars in. There's 9. There's 10, and this is where I thought maybe we're getting close. 3 more bars down, and boom, we're gonna have 11, 12, 13. And sure enough, there's your 11. This is still in August. Okay, keep in mind I'm doing this as of September 20th. So we get a little bounce, a couple days, and there's your 12. Now here's the trick. There's something called a qualifier on the seeker. What that means is, in order to get the 13, we actually, even though you could end up where the criteria of looking back 2 bars meets our minimum criteria, where the close of the current bar ends up lower than 2 bars back, we need to be below bar 8 as well. That's what the qualifier does. So you're going to have to be below this level even if you're to get to 13. And what ends up happening is as we get into September here, still heading up, you'll see, we start to roll over again, and you'll start to see some asterisks. What that means is this bar here, if you look back 2 bars, it really could have been your 13, but it's above the 8, so it doesn't count. And again, I really wouldn't have loved that signal anyways, because it's above the whole count. It's above 1 through 12 so far. Okay, you can't get your exhaustion signal and be higher than where most of the count occurred. So again, we're looking for exhaustion here. So here's another bar that could have been a 13, and another bar that could have been a 13. But what you'll notice now is we've got a new 9-bar setup occurring as well, where 4 are going to be 5 bars in. And here's where the race is at this point in time is to get under the 8 and get our 13 before the new 9-bar setup occurs consecutively, if it's going to. Let's see what ends up happening. So there's 6. This is going to be 7. We didn't close below 8 yet. Remember, the close is down here. We're up here. So there's 7. This is 8. Okay, and this is what's so interesting is that this new bar down, once I print it, I'm going to put this in projection mode. What this is going to do is this is going to be the 9-bar down on the same bar that would have been the 13. And because of that, it's called a recycle. There's your 9, but it actually erases the whole seeker count. Now, what I want you to do is think through in theory, though, what this really means. What this means is the big bar down that happened when the dollar got hit, when the Fed had their announcement on Wednesday. Not only would it have really been a 13, if it had just been 1 bar off in terms of this setup phase, it would have been a 13. But at the same time, we've got a new 9-bar setup phase, which is also a reversal signal, as powerful as the 13. But they're really combined, right? You would have had your 13 on this bar, and you got a new 9. And you technically broke under this static trend line, but remember, to consider it busted, you need to confirm that by moving lower. And so what happened on the last 2 days of the week, okay, was as we headed into Friday. This was late Wednesday going into Thursday. This is Friday, and you can see we have not broken underneath that level yet. Okay, so technically speaking, as we inch back up, this static trend line is support, and this is really key. Technically, you would have had a 13 seeker right there, and technically you've had a new 9-bar setup, both of which are positive reversals. So at this point in time, I think even though that 13's erased, I think you really have to look at a bounce here on the dollar index, especially if we get quickly back above 80.50 and hold that level, because now you've confirmed that you're holding this key support point that we saw. So we're going to be watching that, but I thought that was a real interesting way for us to get to that point. It took a lot longer than I was looking for to get to 13, partly because we got this bounce here that then led to all those asterisks because we weren't under the 8. And then when we get to 13, we're at a whole new 9-bar setup at the exact same time. Either way, it seems to me there's a signal here in the market, and potentially a really important one. And so we're going to be watching the dollar index moving forward and making our calls off of that. Have a great week.